podcast. Today I have a special treat for everyone. I'm on the line with two gentlemen who are both in London tonight. Welcome to the show, Olivier and Peter from the Ciel Foundation.
Hi, I'm Olivier. It's nice to meet you. Julian, I know you already, but it's nice to meet everybody who's listening to the podcast right now.
And thanks for having us. It's good to be here.
Nice. Well, welcome. I'm really excited for this conversation. I know you guys are doing some very important work in regards to kind of global unity and synchronization of like a shared human intention. And I would love to hear, in your own words, what is the Ciel Foundation and how does it operate?
So the Ciel Foundation is a global mission to actually try and help humanity globally raise in consciousness. The Ciel Foundation has a precise story, which is the story of its 9 founders. Actually, we all have been doing our personal and individual work through spirituality for years now, and then at one point, because spirituality works like that, through synchronicities, we finally all met, and that was maybe 5 years ago. And then as we progressed in our spiritual research, we started working together and setting up workshops to help people in their spirit, in their own spiritual path, and maybe help them, get rid of issues that they could have in their daily lives. And from that, we developed tools, spiritual tools that we ourselves called spiritual technology. And from that, we actually set up a company that is called Alternate Paradigm, altogether that could do individual life coaching, but also use that spiritual technology and apply it to companies. And then we realized that we needed to do something else to actually scale things up, because our global aim is to help the entire humanity, and doing workshops every weekend with 10 or 15 people takes about 12 lifetimes to actually touch the entire planet Earth. So we did something that is not that usual in terms of spirituality. When you actually follow different initiations, when you go and meet different wisdom traditions and do rituals with these people, then you are able to have visions. And through these visions, you may have the privilege to know a little bit better what your soul mission is in this lifetime. And usually your soul mission is something that is very private. All 9 of us decided to share those missions and to actually collaborate fully so that all of our missions could be achieved in this lifetime. And we founded the Ciel Foundation for that, with a global mission of, like I said, raising consciousness, and lots of different individual missions that we all put together.
Individual missions that our co-founders and us have, they're all interconnected and all interlocked. So it's kind of beautifully designed. At the moment, there's 4 projects or missions that we started with. The first one is the Council of the 12 and above, where we were tasked with finding 12 specific spiritual elders or spiritual masters from 12 different traditions around the world, 6 women and 6 men. That's something that's going to be taking place at the end of November. The second project is also related. Lucy Martins is one of our co-founders and is an award-winning documentary filmmaker. So she's been on all the trips to find the masters over the last 14 months. So the second project is a film called The 12. There's a trailer for that already that you can see on our website. The third mission is the Wisdom and Nature art exhibition and auction, which opened in London 6 weeks ago, moved to Paris, and will be concluding as an auction in New York on November 29th. And then there's a fourth mission, which Olivier, maybe you'll share.
Yeah, the fourth mission is something that will happen a little bit later as a second part. It's going to happen maybe in December 2018, and it's called the Wisdom and Nature Symposium. That symposium is actually a second part to the Council of 12. In our mind, what the Council of 12 does, that gathering of 12 different elders from a wisdom tradition, is they set the foundations, they set a framework in terms of morals, in terms of ethics, in terms of setting the ground to the right, in quotes, the right approach to living our lives as human beings and being interconnected with our environment, with others, and with planet Earth. Because this knowledge we had at one point, and as Westerners, we kind of totally lost. These traditions, they still hold those values very strongly, and in their daily life, they actually prove that it's something that preserves balance and has tremendous benefits for human beings. So that council actually lays out the moral background. And then later on in December 2018, the symposium is there to be pragmatic, to find solutions to different issues that Western societies, but the world in general, are confronting right now. And what we realized through our different trips this whole year, and through the people that we met, that there are loads and loads of solutions that already exist at a micro level, right? So the aim of that symposium is to treat 13 workshops which represent 13 of the biggest issues that we are facing. Can be water, can be agriculture, food, economics, the money system, the education. Try to scale solutions that already have been invented and finance these solutions, put them into motion and test them after a year and take the ones that work and then scale them, offer them open source, scale them up and open them to the entire planet. So the goal of that symposium is to have those innovators actually meet the right investors and the right influencers. Pretty much what you're doing, Julian, but in the framework of what the council will put in place in late November this year.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you for this very conclusive summary of who the Ciel Foundation is, what the mission is, and I really enjoy how clear you guys are in these next 4 steps, also over an extended period of time. And yes, Olivier, I think that's how we connected the first time, is there is a lot of shared mission on the planet already, and I feel like sometimes the only piece lacking is really all of us synchronizing over this and understanding we are already kind of going towards a raising human consciousness. Let's just not get distracted with all the noise and all the all the entities that kind of pull attention towards a mission that's maybe a little less focused. So what I really love about your 4 missions, and let me kind of recap if I understood that correctly, is there's a Council of 12 happening this November in New York City, and there's a meditation around that we want to share a little bit more in the run of this conversation. There's a documentary film that I'm really excited about, a story in a way that it can impact as many people as possible. You have an art exhibition that's traveling between 3 of the biggest cities in the world. That alone is really amazing.
Yeah, that's when, when we started the foundation and actually prioritized the different missions that we could see, because the different missions that we've seen, all 9 of them, some of them are maybe going to happen in 25 years. So when we prioritized this a year ago and saw those 4 missions and had no idea whatsoever of the way that we could achieve one mission, and there were 4 to achieve at the same time. The magical thing is that, you know, when you're exactly doing what you're supposed to do, then things get in place, and they actually have a way to, they have their own life, right? They just exist by themselves, and then they attract everything that they should attract. So the exhibition was the really first concrete thing that the foundation has set up, because it had started in September. And we were the first to be very surprised to have 40 of the biggest artists and photographers that are related, for whom the work is related to nature, actually be excited by the concept of the exhibition, and agree to donate one of their pieces so that we could show them all around the world and have an auction to actually fund the rest of the mission. So that was a big surprise. And the film is exactly the same way. I mean, we had no idea when we started this that the wisdom tradition tribes that we were visiting would be all right with the fact that we were coming with a camera crew and wanted to actually hear what they had to share with us. Because the film is all about that. It's all about giving the speech to these people and hearing their truth. And then part of the movie is also, of course, follow them from their home countries and villages to New York City, because it's going to be such a shell shock and a culture shock that something most brilliant will come out of it on film, that's for sure. And the council is the same thing. I mean, we've gone through a magical process, surprises to surprises, and we're ending up in New York. And the idea of a global meditation actually came from people who are not from the foundation, but got so excited about the project and wanted to participate somehow, that they went, let's do something global. Let's all, you know, put our intentions. So this is what is going to happen on the 26th. I mean, any time of the day throughout the entire world, just, you know, will it be 1 minute or 20 minutes of everybody's time, but having a common intention is exactly the way to actually all understand and accept the fact that, yes, humanity is moving forward, and the path to a positive outcome is clearly set. At one point, we just need to realize that it's our global and common path, that we are the ones walking on it, and we just have to turn right, you know, and there you are, there you're on the right path.
Powerful, yeah, absolutely.
You have something to add, Pete?
The nice thing about this, the 4 missions and how they correlate, is if the meta mission is to support as many people as possible in their own journeys of growing in consciousness, anyone can relate to beautiful photography of nature.
Yeah,
right? It's a very easy opening. There's nothing dogmatic about standing in front of an extraordinary photograph by David Yarrow or Claudia Andujar. It resonates, right? We love stories, and that's where the movie comes in. Absolutely. And the film is not about us. It's really a vehicle for the elders or the masters to share their relationship with nature and what we can learn from it. The council itself is more esoteric and is more private, although there is an opportunity to support through meditation and connect. And then, you know, the symposium itself, the idea of bringing philanthropists and influencers and social entrepreneurs together to do business is not a new one. What is new is adding consciously a layer of spiritual technology to optimize and support that process, that may not have happened. You know, someone very wise said, you know, do we really think that Socrates and Pythagoras, Herodotus, Heraclitus, do we think these people really just use their intellects to come up with these extraordinary theorems? It's just the rational part of the brain, the materialistic aspect. When people ask for scientific data to support the sort of things that we're doing and many other people, it's as if these things can exist in a vacuum without a spiritual aspect. And of course, the four people that I just talked about were all spiritual initiates in one tradition or another. And so really it's getting over that separation between the material and the spiritual and trying to marry those to dissolve this separation that we have inside of us as individuals, or between individuals or communities or nation states, and recognizing that this all has to work in a holistic way.
Absolutely. So that what I find really powerful in the mission you guys are sharing is that with an art exhibition and also a movie, it's very much like the communication part of how to get in touch with people, and also a piece of education, right? But then you're marrying it with location, bringing people together in a physical spot actually really amplifies that in my experience. So I find that fascinating, and I'm really happy that I can be part of that journey to a degree. What I'm a lot more curious about right now is, tell me more about the spiritual technologies. What are we talking about? And those wisdom traditions and those elders that you have selected, or that kind of selected maybe themselves, or that were selected through this conscious journey, like what are the traditions they come from?
So I'll talk about the spiritual technology, and Peter will talk about the traditions. So spiritual technology is a fancy word, but it's a word that actually you know, everybody can relate to, because it's all about tools. As we as humans get more and more serious about science and technology, they forgot that the principles they apply to science and technology apply exactly the same way to spirituality. Meaning, spirituality is not for us, it's not about dogmas, it's not about text, religions, it's about direct experience. And when when you have direct experiences of spirituality, and if you use your spirituality in certain ways for certain objectives and goals, then and you're curious enough, which is something really important in spirituality, then you develop means to actually get to your objectives. You develop tools. So if you take any shaman of any tradition, if he needs to resolve an issue for one of his fellow members of the tribe, maybe, I don't know, kidney rocks, and he has to make them pass, and he will use spiritual technology to do that, meaning he will have a special ritual, he will set his intention in a certain way, maybe he would visualize certain things that he needs to be visualized in his experience to cure that issue, and the issue will be solved. So all these things put together are just tools, spiritual tools. And that's what spiritual technology is for us. It's it's filling the gaps that science can't fill for the moment, or will never be able to fill, because science is about materialism. It's about what we call reality, knowing that reality is something very subjective. So if there's, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we can get maybe more specific even.
For details, for example, if we in our line of work, what we can do for people who have certain issues, say that somebody is terrified of bees, for example. So what we're going to use is we're going to use a process. We're going to tell that person that we're going to have him meditate on something and give him a guided meditation. But what we really do is we put, through intention and through the tools that we've developed, what we do is we put that person in the state of a conscious dreaming. And in that state of conscious dreaming, the things that we're going to, through intention, we're going to have him see in his state of conscious dreaming is all about symbolism. And that person will be able to address the issue directly through his subconscious and get rid of the issue without even knowing that he's getting rid of the issue. Meaning, if you're in your dream state, in your conscious dream state, and you're on the path, and there's a huge boulder blocking the path, and then intentionally during that state, you're going to take the boulder and try to lift it to take it out of the way. You're going to feel that it's very light first, and then there's no problem to shove it out of the way and continue your path. And then in your daily life, you'll realize 3 days afterwards that your fear of the bee has totally disappeared. Is that a good example?
So that's like conscious dream work. The question that comes up for me, so just a little background that neither of my listeners know, you guys know about me. I used to host a studio space in Victoria, British Columbia. And we did a lot of work like that, actually. So we had conscious dreaming workshops, lots of meditation, mindfulness workshops. And I did that for 2 years. Some of them I hosted, some of them we had facilitators come in. So I'm familiar with that being a reality and something that really kind of on a very conscious level or accessing the subconscious can work. What are the questions that come up for people? Because I understand that for a lot of people, they're very much kind of focused on, well, if it's not tactile and real in front of me, and if science can prove it, it's not real. So where does this line kind of dissolve for you guys? So how do you foresee this kind of entering into everybody's sphere?
Well, I'll let Peter talk about that or answer the question. But just very briefly, usually it's because the results are there. So usually you have a friend, a family member, or anybody who and again, when I'm giving that example, it's just a tiny little example of what can be done. I mean, the realm of what can be done in terms of spiritual technology are infinite. But usually it's, direct experience or word of mouth that the results are here. When you see somebody totally change it can be in a day, it can be in a month, but really deeply changed, then you have a tendency to ask questions. How did you do it? How did that happen? And then from the word of mouth, that's what usually happens. Pete.
Yeah, I can give a direct example which happened in real time as opposed to waiting for the effects over the coming hours or weeks or months. This happened with 5 individuals, but the first time it happened, someone came to us with an inability to swallow pills, which was inconvenient because sometimes swallowing a pill can be extremely beneficial to you. Lady in her 40s, had been to doctors, psychologists. It's something that could not be resolved. And so it occurred to us what the root cause of that problem was, which was related to a past life experience. And it was because that woman had drowned, right? Which is not, as you tune into it, maybe that's not that surprising, right? There's a problem with the throat. They couldn't swallow. So once we diagnosed that, we did some work, what you might call energetic work, or worked with the woman, the conscious streaming. And very quickly, as in under a minute, we handed her a pill and she was able to swallow it. Now for her, most importantly, that was mind-blowing. For me, it was mind-blowing because even though I'd been a practicing Tibetan Buddhist for 12 years, which meant I believed in reincarnation, for me, that moment was impressive because that was a direct experience of, we identified some kind of an echo effect, something that happened in a woman's past life that was affecting her today, the inability to swallow pills. And we were able to transform that. We meaning this lady and us. That happened 3 or 4 times in the following 12 to 18 months. Same problem, inability to swallow pills. And the only difference was there was another person who had the drowning issue. The other 3 were strangulation or hanging. Same thing. And immediately they're able to swallow a pill. It's an anecdote.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very real example. So let me maybe go into the second part of that question, because that's truly interesting. So the wisdom traditions that these 12 elders, 6 women, 6 men, come from, how did you find these people, and which wisdom traditions are we talking about?
Well, you hinted the true answer, which is we didn't find them, that they found us.
Yes.
Right. How do you go about finding 12 people out of 7 billion in 12, 14 months? It's not easy. There's got to be a shortcut there somewhere. And the shortcut is really the dreaming, or what you might call meditation, and being able to access certain information. And then how do you triangulate that? So through a series of questions and answers, you get to, or we would get to the person in our network who is closest, 1, 2, 3 people away from the person we're looking for. And then we pick up the phone or get online and say, we're looking for a person in their 70s in Indonesia, has these abilities, looks kind of like this. And we'd find ourselves there.
Well, it sounds like some advanced magic. If I'm gonna be really straight and honest with you, that sounds like out of a movie almost.
Well, the work that Olivier was referring to, we worked with, over a period of 5 years, we did these workshops and did some individual coaching, and we didn't realize it at the time, but with hindsight, that was a form of training for us. We put ourselves in service of other people to help them, and then, as in any mystic tradition, you end up working on yourself by helping other people. And it was at the end of that 5-year period, and longer in some of our co-founders' case, you realize that you developed some interesting abilities. And at that point, we started to find our missions, which would have been impossible without having done the training. And so, having done the training, that put us in a position where we had the ability to find the 12, basically to tune into the information. And,
yeah, that's the important part to me, because there's actually no magic happening. Yeah. And then you can, even people that are very pragmatic and very scientific can totally relate to what's happening here. The world is, the universe is just information, okay? It's just information that is vibrating at different frequencies. And then your brain actually interprets the information and turns it into a wood table, a door, a subway station, concrete, trees, but it's all information. And what meditation does is it just enables you to vibrate at a higher frequency. And if you vibrate at a higher frequency, then what your brain does, it catches information that vibrates higher. It's plain simple. So what did these elders do to make us find them? They just they plant information into the universe at a certain level of vibration, so that people that actually are able to get the information at one point will catch it, and then will decide to act on it or not. This is why, while looking for those 12 masters, we actually met people who had actually exactly the same mission. We met people who were saying, so what are you doing? Well, we're trying to look for 12 masters. No way, that's what I've been doing for 5 years. And so there's no real magic. There's just the knowledge and the realization that if you're feeling sad, you're vibrating at such at one level of one frequency level. If you're happy, you're vibrating at another frequency level. And if you're focused, or if you're meditating, then another level of vibration. And then
Absolutely.
And that level of vibration, what we call state of mind, which is not a state of mind, it's a state of vibration, then it just lets you catch the information that actually is at the same level than your state of mind. That if you're depressed or you're feeling violent, or this is the kind of ideas that you're going to catch. If you're into a very violent environment, you will not have other ideas than violent ideas, because that's the only information that you're able to grasp.
That's kind of the information that is around you if you're in an environment that's tinted, right? So if I understand you correctly, what you're kind of explaining, and in another episode, I talked with a friend about virtual reality, and kind of the way virtual reality through brainwave induction and entrainment can kind of alter your state of brainwaves and maybe help you entrain certain states. So if you are in an environment that has a certain frequency, let's say, the only way to access, let's say, a non-violent state, or a truly peaceful state, or a truly loving state, how do you get there? Is that just practice and training and like clarity inside, or?
That's the important path. There's no environment with only one vibration. There is no point where you're in an environment with only violent frequencies around you. All the frequencies, all the information is there all the time. It's just, it all depends on your inner state of being. Okay, so if you're into and so it doesn't depend on your environment. That's why in the middle of the most difficult countries that have been in war for 20 years in a row, you find the most unbelievable people that are cellularly made of love. And because it doesn't depend on your environment, it just depends on your inner state. And your inner state, the way you progress in your inner state, is what we're trying to do individually, is to raise your consciousness level. And that means being curious, getting interested in what all these different traditions have to say about it, how they actually see how the world is made, what the reality is made of, and just unplug yourself from the formal education of the Western world, which goes the other way. The Western education is made to numb you out. It isn't made to actually expand your mind and expand your vision of what reality is. So this is, to me, the only solution. It's be curious about what people that have been on Earth for more than 10,000 or 15,000 years have to say about what being a human is about.
You know, what I would say is, of course, it's easier to access those states when you're alone at the top of a mountain, surrounded by blue sky and a fantastic view, than being in a war-torn area. But what Olivier says is completely correct.
Yeah, that's very powerful, and certainly I've made personal experiences where that was very true for me as well. And just for example, I lived in a very in a very, how can I say that politically correct, in a town in South America where the mafia was very much in control, the drug and car smuggling mafia. And I was 15, 16 at the time, and just never really had any issues whatsoever. And everybody I met was like, how did you survive this year in this town? This is where people get killed. And maybe I was oblivious, and the oblivion kind of protected me from entering that frequency entirely. But there was just so much love in that community, and so many people that had nothing to do with that world, where I could just follow my curiosity. That I was 15, 16 at the time. Follow my curiosity that really connected me with a whole different tribe of people in that in that location. So absolutely, it's possible anywhere in the world. I think that's possibly also what we're all kind of looking for, is how do we get out of this tight-knit matrix that we've kind of co-created at this point, where humans are reduced to a production factor, where humans are kind of taught to be nothing but a working entity within a system. So what it really makes me curious right now, you guys, is those 12 elders. Can you tell us a little bit more specifics about them? Like, where in the world are they from? What spiritual technology do they work with?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are certain commonalities between the 12. The first one is that they're truly and deeply humble people. They're not necessarily the heads of their communities or their tribe. They're not necessarily recognized even with their own communities as being particularly special in any way. They're extremely discreet, extremely positive, extremely caring. But if you didn't realize who they were, you really wouldn't know who they were. So the way the council is working, what makes them suitable for this council, is that they all hold certain principles. You could even call them spiritual keys for humanity. So there's something about these individuals who are not representing their communities or their tribes or their cultures, right? There's something special about these individuals. And they represent something energetically for all of humanity, which is why they're coming together to do some specific work that only these 12 people could really do. There are plenty of councils and obviously an incredible amount of important work that's been done and been put together by many, many different groups of people. But this is the particular flavor of this council. They come from all over the world. Loosely speaking, six are from the northern hemisphere, 6 are from the southern hemisphere. We have people from Australia, Japan, Nepal, Thailand, Ethiopia, Gabon, Botswana, Siberia, Alaska, Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia.
Got it.
Many of them have never traveled away from their communities, certainly never got on a plane before. And you know, one of the commonalities amongst them when we were able to sit with them and explain to them about the council and invite them to take a seat on the council, that for the most part, they said that they knew that they were coming, that we were coming. They knew about the council. One of them even said that their grandfather's grandfather told them about this council. And this ties well with what Olivier was saying before. To me, it seems like the zeitgeist is a frequency that's being broadcast. A bunch of people hear the broadcast in a dream. There's a council of 12. Amazing. And then if you're curious, you start investigating. It looks like 6 men. It looks like 6 women. I wonder what they're doing. Why are they happening? Has it already happened? Is it going to happen? And then at some point, you know, for Le Ciel, we realized, well, someone's going to have to organize this. You know, a couple of San Kalahari Bushmen probably don't have the skill sets to book plane tickets and raise some money and get a hotel room and make some phone calls. You know, that's our job. You know, we're just messengers and facilitators. But they're remarkable people, and we were welcomed beautifully and warmly by all of them.
So yeah, I don't know if, because we have to be clear, and I think Peter was actually, but I just want to reiterate. We since we're mission and we're just pawns in a game that is way bigger than us. We have come to, through our meditations, have an idea, a precise idea of what we think the council is about. But it's only what we think. What we know or think we know is that these 12 individuals with their own separate key will just, click like a puzzle. And when that puzzle is actually set up, then it will open possibilities, and it will open quantums for positive outcomes. Because as we visited these different traditions, they all have something in common, is that they feel or they see in their visions that humanity has a deadline, that there's a precise deadline in about 8 years, where it will be too late to actually turn around and do something else with our lives and this planet. So they all have the sense that there's an urgency in the matter, and that we have to do something about it right now. These traditions have been saying that for years now, and they feel that that issue is so important that even though nobody has been listening to them, they're still totally ready to get together and do something about it, and then share what their values can be through a movie, so that change can be implemented and a paradigm can be shifted. But we as a foundation have no sort of attachment to it, because it's the ideas don't come from us, and the outcome will not come from us, definitely, but from these guys.
Right, and if I understand you kind of reading between the lines, it's when these 12 elders meet, there's like a key or a puzzle that's syncing up, but possibly the ripple of impact are many more smaller puzzles or other puzzles that kind of have to click into each other as well, possibly at the same time, synergistically, or like the way I understand the kind of the bigger cosmic picture is it's a synergistic geometric puzzle. So kind of as we unlock one door, the next domino just starts
exactly. And even fractally, it's not even dominoes, it's just, it happens, everything happens at the same time. That small door that you open, and boom, 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 all the quantic possibilities open at the same time. And the period of doubt that the human world is facing right now, because everybody doubts pretty much everything,
yeah.
And everybody who has faith or beliefs is tested every day in their faith and beliefs and visions. Well, that period of doubt is exactly that. It's the moment where the possible the quantums are all opening up, and if we go through it with the clear intention of what we want, then the achievement will prevail at the end. The goal will be achieved.
And the 12, and if the council is called the 12 and above, right? So it's 12 in spirit. But another thing that the 12 have in common is no doubt. there is plenty of faith there, and although they're from many different traditions, and this is incredibly important, the game for all of us as individuals on the planet is to connect with the sacred within. You don't have to go to a workshop or go to a church. You are supported by nature. It's easier to do it in a forest or on top of a mountain. But the point is to connect with the sacred within, and then you teach yourself. So regardless of all the missions that we all have, or the concerns that we have, or the good deeds and the work that we do as teachers and carers for parents, grandchildren, it's to work on ourselves, because it's fractal, right? Yeah. So everyone needs to take responsibility for their own development, and as that happens, that triggers other events. I think that's important.
Yeah, it's very powerful what you guys are saying. That is something I fundamentally believe in as well, and a collective that I work with over here in British Columbia. And Olivier, you and I talked about that before. Our why is also raising human consciousness, and we truly just surrender to, I see it as a fact, it's the inside work, right? It's inside work that, for me personally, the path of plant medicines has certainly accelerated that work. I don't think it's needed necessarily. I think we could just literally sit and close our eyes and breathe and tune in to, as you said, where do we need to grow as individuals within the collective. Sometimes I'm going to share this vulnerably with you guys. Sometimes I have visions like, what if humanity would take a 5-minute break and everyone would just go hug the person next to them for 5 minutes? You know, this is maybe very esoteric or dreaming, but I feel like it's that simple, actually. The moment we would stop to pay more attention to the outside world than to the actual inside journey, I think it can literally shift within 5 minutes.
That, and there's something in here, when we listened to your previous podcasts, there was something that was said by one of the people that you interviewed, which is, to me, it's genius. It's about the glass half full and half empty. And that guy was saying, who cares about the glass? The only thing that counts is the intention behind, the outcome that you want to see realized. You don't care about how and what reality exactly is. You just, what you care about is trying to shape reality as you want it to be.
And to fill the glass.
Yeah, and 20 persons having the same intention, it has a ripple effect.
Yeah. I'm going to share one more small story that I just lived over the last months with you guys, and maybe there's another question that kind of arises from that. So I was just about 2 months ago, I was in Geneva in Switzerland at a symposium of some sort. I was at a global meeting at the World Economic Forum for their young leadership initiative called the Global Shapers. And we were 350 people, kids, under 30, and we were from 150 different countries. It was very, very interesting to see. First of all, the under 30-year-olds, there's very little doubt that we're all the same. But then what came up, and it was really interesting to me because I was born in Germany. I lived in South America for a couple of years. I live in Canada since a couple of years now. So I've seen kind of the cultural interactions that vary, and then the human kind of resonance at the core is always the same because we're all on this human journey. And I was in a North American meetup within this Shapers conference I was at, and one of our leaders said, "You guys in North America, there's something interesting we observe. You're the ones that least collaborate with each other. If I go to the African group or the Asian group or the South American group, they all want to collaborate with each other nonstop." And for me, what I was wondering afterwards, apart from that, of course, it triggers all kinds of thoughts and reactions maybe for a moment. But then I was wondering, well, what is maybe the value of this individualistic culture and that we've started very much in North America? Is there something like the polar balance between we are one collective and we are a big group of people? We are 7 billion, like a collective oneness. And at the same time, we're 7 billion for the reason of individually becoming sovereign of our own experience.
Well, I think the interesting thing is that the cultures that actually still collaborate are the ones that are still very much aligned with nature, because they have a tradition and they have the knowledge that you can do nothing alone. You cannot, if you're any plant in a forest, you will not survive if you're alone, and you will not have a choice anyhow. You will be related to the others through mycelium, and you will collaborate and you will interconnect, and the resources of the entire forest will be managed and will be allocated to different parts of the forest with the different needs. So the cultures, the traditions that really have that anchored still at some point, because they've resisted to what I call Western culture, well, they have a tendency to actually emulate what nature does, and that is full collaboration.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually a fascinating observation, Julian. I mean, you'll notice that in the list of countries I gave you, the countries that are being represented in inverted commas by the 12 elders, there's none from Europe. There is one from Alaska, but not from the rest of North America. And we don't think that's an accident. And it's also interesting that Le Ciel is pretty much, we're all European. You know, one Polish, one German, two French. The rest of us are English. I'm Venezuelan American, but grew up in England. There's something interesting there as well. There's something interesting about the fact that the masters are generally not related to religion. There's something to look at there as well. In our experience, which I think has been mirrored by a lot of other people that we're starting to meet or reconnecting with, is we've not really been collaborating other than within our own little group, because what we tried to do with Le Ciel is to work or to reflect the mycelium. So there is no hierarchy. So you could look at us, or we look at ourselves as 9 little saplings working together. We're deeply interconnected. No one's in charge. There's no guru. We just support each other in our own individual work. We're really straight with each other. We try not to take other people's loving critiques personally, which of course is very difficult to do. But we've really had homework to do. It's sort of been like doing a PhD for the last 5 years. So there hasn't really been time, it hasn't been really the right time to collaborate with people outside of our own little ecosystem, our little pod. What's become clear is that we're now starting to meet a lot of really interesting people who've also been immersed in whatever area that's really driving them and what they're passionate about. Because of course the whole thing is interconnected. The 12 workshops we're going to be representing at the symposium are all interconnected. You can't work on one thing and have it siloed from something else. You know, economics is related to agriculture, is related to education, etc.
It's like the mycelium itself, right?
Yeah, so now is the time where we're really starting to open up and say, hey, you know, what have you guys been working on? Oh, you know, maybe we can help you with that one. Maybe you can help us. The network is really starting to hum now. And one of the things that's really exciting for us about our company, Alternate Paradigms, is we're now going to have the ability and the opportunity to go into companies and organizations, foundations, charities, and say, you know, maybe we can help you guys realize your own goals. We don't lecture anyone in the same way that you wouldn't lecture someone on how to grow in consciousness. You can just support and create the space for that to happen. But we're looking forward to more and more collaborations like that in the coming year.
But you know that there's something, to me, it still is a natural process, meaning, you know, at first you have a seed, and then from the seed there's a tree that grows, and then there's 2 trees, 3 trees, and then other plants, and then it makes a tiny little forest. And then, but that forest is not interconnected with the forest that is 2 miles from there. What is going to happen is that other trees are going to grow in between, and then everything's going to intertwine. But it all starts with little ecosystems that actually grow themselves, get autosufficient, and then they can collaborate and everything can get intertwined. And that's exactly what's happening for the past 10 years with all these people that actually do work that has a meaning in terms of outcome for humanity. It's that all these little ecosystems grew out to be self-sufficient, and now everybody can extend hands and actually work together, because that's what nature does.
Powerful. Well, you guys, as we're kind of concluding this interview and coming to the end of this hour-long conversation, I'd love to ask you my favorite question on this podcast, actually. And it relates with everything you guys have been sharing so far. And just as a little piece of information, this question is truly why I started this podcast. And my intention is really to get people to kind of look way beyond where we are right now in terms of timeline, but also in terms of possibility. Because often when we lift off the pressure of time and money, people's minds go to very, very different places. So here's the question. If we as shared humanity had a 200-year or 500-year plan, like a vision for humanity, how would something like that look like in your guys' eyes?
So you're asking us to see forward in 200 years, or 500 years, is that it?
That's it. I mean, wherever you want to take this question, either what do you see, are we going to be in 200 or 500 years, or maybe how would we actually get to the place of establishing such visions? Because I think that's also a part of the question, right? Like, what does it take to actually flip our mindset from 4-year political cycles and instantaneous economic to-dos into, well, let's think of the longevity of our planet and our species. Either way you want to take this question.
Well, I'm pretty sure we won't have exactly the same answer with Peter. To me, and because I'm talking about direct experience, there is no, it's something that is so human to, you know, try to actually picture what humanity will be in 200 years. And if, to me, if we continue to actually have these questions in mind, it just takes us out of sync. It takes us out of the flow, because the flow is leaving every moment at its fullest. And as we think about these questions, where we're gonna be in 200 years, then we stay in the state of mind that we are, and we'll surely be instinct in 200 years. So to me, it's all about slowing things down and taking, and you know, the problem with human beings is that they actually they're so self-conscious that they think that they need to see big, but they don't need to see big. And you don't see, I'm pretty sure that any other mammal on the planet doesn't actually plan what the future of whales is going to be in 200 years. They just live every moment to the fullest, and by doing that, they're actually in sync with the entire universe. And by being in sync with the entire universe, they actually live forever. So that's my point of view. You
Absolutely, I get it. Usually you're flipping the answer, saying don't look outwards,
yeah,
far away, look into the very now.
Yeah, we need to see things smaller and actually understand that we're just one cog, one little piece of machinery in something that is so big that we cannot even understand or apprehend what it is, and that we should come back to a little humility and just live, you know, simply. That's what I think.
Thank you for that answer. Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I know what Olivier thinks I'm going to say, but it's not that different. I mean, through our journey, particularly with the council, so say the last 18 months, we had no idea what the outcome was, and we still don't know what the outcome is going to be, right? So we worked on a need-to-know basis, and then you combine that with faith, and then you just try to take the next step perfectly. If you try to go too far down the line and try to anticipate what the goal is and try to derive a specific strategy to get from A to B, you're going to miss all this magic and all the quantum stuff that's around you. And I would say the same thing as Olivier. He used the word humility, but I'd flip it and go, it's arrogant to think that, you know, that we can really control all that much. There seems to be a much bigger design. And a little bit of humility goes an awful long way. When you just take one step at a time. We seem to have been running some kind of algorithm over the last 500 years, you know, pick a number, where humanity's been exploiting nature. Now, when there's just a few hundred people running around the planet, that doesn't really matter too much. But when you get to 7 billion, we've got a bit of a problem. We need to bring humanity's relationship to nature back into balance. And so how is that going to be done? Otherwise, and Olivier alluded to this earlier with what the masters have to say, we've only got about 8 years, forget about 200 or 500. There are certain milestones, and all these 12 different traditions from all over the world say this. There's certain milestones that need to be met by 2025. The parlor games of, you know, where are we going to be in 20, 50 years? That may not be a game that we're going to have the free time to play with pretty soon. The stakes are pretty high, and it all starts with the individual. And you know, in the West, we're at a disadvantage because of our education and the conditioning that we've all had. We think that we know so much, but we know nothing. You know, we've had people in the West come to the Wisdom and Nature exhibitions and look at some of Lucy's film and go, yeah, I get it. You know, we're supposed to give these guys some money and you know, assuage our guilt that we're knocking down their trees. And it's, you know, we start laughing. It's like, no, yeah, it's not that at all. It's the guys from these wisdom traditions who do know how to live together in community with each other and in harmony with the forest. They're coming to help us save our own asses. They have the information. We don't have the technology. I mean, we have it's some pretty interesting technology, but we're so off balance. We need to find some balance. And then there's an amazing future out there for us at some point. So we can intend for the best possible future for ourselves and our families. But let's not be prescriptive. Let's be open to the wonder of what might happen. We might be surprised.
I get it. Wonderful. So basically, both of you are calling us into more presence. And I heard you stretch these 8 years again, that it's very important that we kind of find the balance between the heart and the mind, and the traditions that are maybe so much more in the know how to be and live in collaboration at this point.
Yeah, and because there's this things are very simple, and when you actually listen to what life has to tell you, and then life provides. That's pretty much it. You don't need to worry about anything if you just listen to what life is telling you. And if you actually live your life going through whatever happens to you, taking it as a lesson to improve yourself, then life meets you with an open hand and will provide. So we don't have a lot to worry if we actually relearn what our ancestors knew. I mean, we've been going crazy for about 150 years. That's it. So it's a very short period of time. We can totally, just step back and take another path. It's not that difficult.
Well, thank you both so much for taking the time, Peter and Olivier, and kind of sharing your insights, your perspectives, and kind of calling listeners and myself into the responsibility of becoming present to not necessarily the magic, but the true depth that's inside of all of us. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having us. And again, please, everybody join us on the 26th of November. And, you know, set your own intentions of how you'd like the world to be. And let's all, put that together and make it happen.
That sounds like the next perfect step.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you.
Thank you.